Hey everybody, welcome to the very first episode of Marketers Drinking Beer, a live conversation featuring marketing news, trends, and case studies, lubricated by discoveries from the world of craft beer. So today we're going to be talking about, whoa, turn off my phone. It was off.
Live studio. So he's now recording us.
That's called a rookie mistake for somebody who's been doing this for as long as it happens every now and then. Anyway, we're going to be talking about whether or not artificial intelligence is going to put us all out of business. A couple of articles popping up about that. We're all going to talk about how to transform into a modern digital marketing department. And we're going to see if we can help an audience member out with a particular challenge that they have. And we'll be doing all of this under the gentle influence of one or two craft beers that we're going to be sampling tonight. So hey everybody, how's everybody doing?
Great.
With me tonight, I'm Paul Gannon. I'm the CEO of Thoughtcast Media. I'm joined by Dave Martin, the freshly minted Director of Marketing at the American College of Radiology. That's exciting, right? Patrick Dorsey is the Executive Vice President of Marketing at Impexium, and batting cleanup, we've got Tom Lehman, the President of Lehman Associates. Welcome everybody.
Thank you.
So don't forget to like us and follow us on this Facebook page. Invite your friends to join us. Comment during and after the broadcast. And of course, share it with all of your friends. So, without further ado, let's get to our very first beer. Molly, if you want to bring the first one up. So tonight we're having a battle of the Beltway with a beer from Maryland and a beer from Virginia. We're going to start with Trail Angel Weiss from Devils Backbone Brewery in Reeds Gap in Nelson County, Virginia. Gentlemen, I give you Trail Angel Weiss. There we go. Thank you, Molly.
Bavarian-style.
Thank you. There you go.
Thank you.
So our producer,
Cold too.
Frank picks the beers for us, and I asked him to pick a couple of beers that are kind of sort of in the same family, and that's what we have here. I think the last time we did this, we had like a stout and a Hefeweizen that didn't quite. It's kind of hard to compare them, you know. So there we go. Okay, cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers. I like that. I like that a lot.
That's good.
It's a little sweet.
You think?
Yeah. It's got the banana you get a lot with the Weiss beers.
Yeah. So they describe it as a Bavarian-style Hefeweizen that is honey-colored, light to medium in body with a fruity and spicy finish. I think it's kind of spicy myself. A little bit at the end, no?
You're a little spicy, actually.
Thanks so much. Gee, thanks, Dave. I wasn't expecting that. Of all the things that was going to be said.
After 2 sips, here we go.
He starts hitting on random men. Well, hey, there's anything wrong with that.
Whatever works.
Yeah, whatever works, right? So, Patrick, what do you think? You like it?
I liked it. I did taste that spice though at the end. Like I was trying to figure it out. I know I'm leaning towards
Yeah.
the way I felt it a little bit. I think it's a nice summer beer. I like it.
Definitely a nice number.
Summer beer, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. I apologize for not having wheat beer glasses, but we do the best we can here. If things go well, maybe I'll go and invest in some wheat beer glasses. I was telling Frank that I was in Germany a couple of years ago. I was at a picnic, and they had two beers. They had a Helles and they had a wheat beer. And Patrick went to my younger son, went to help himself for a beer, and he grabbed a Helles glass to fill up with his wheat beer. And the Germans got very agitated. They were very nice, but they were like, "What are you doing?" So sometimes you have to learn your lesson one way or the other. But
Belgians are like that too.
Are they really?
I lived in Belgium, and they had the glass for every specific beer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
It makes a difference.
yeah.
now, are you guys? Yeah, it does. Now, are you guys Hefeweizen fans?
Love it.
Do you?
I'll drink it all day long.
Yeah.
I don't order it a lot, but I'm not just because I like other beers more.
Yeah.
Not that I dislike it.
I like them in the summertime.
Yeah.
Although they do tend to sort of, some of them can taste the same a little bit, but I kind of like it's got a little bit more, get that banana.
It's a little
taste in
sweet.
it.
This is a little
You
sweet
think
for
so?
me.
Yeah.
And jump into your kind of sweet beer.
Anyway,
Sorry, I took us down the wrong path.
you took yourself down that path, my friend. We're nowhere near that path. But Trail Angel Weiss, okay, not a bad thing. Devil's Backbone. All right. Okay, so our first topic is whether or not any of us will have jobs in the wake of widespread adoption of artificial intelligence. There was an article on CNBC, "Marketing Will Never Be Done by Robots." Now, these featured John Travis, who's Adobe's VP of Brand Marketing, Mark Pritchard, Procter & Gamble's Chief Brand Officer. All I've been reading, in fact, this appeared nestled between 30 or 40 articles about how none of us will work again once AI becomes fully adopted. Both of these men, pretty impressive brand guys, said no, it's not going to be the case. Now, I can't remember if they used the word never, it's in the title of the article, but never put anybody out of work, I'm not sure. Put all of us out of work. What do you think? You think sort of another way. You think it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, it's the time. There's no time frame, so I'm kind of curious to that because it's not going to put anybody out of work in the next 5 years. It could start at the lower edges of, marketing teams because AI is going to replace the mundane, the busy work, and probably we'll get to a point where people are focused more on strategy and analysis than on purely executing on sending an email, right? Like an AI platform or a marketing automation platform that's using AI might be able to make that happen in time. It's not going to put anybody out of their job in 5 years, but in 15 years, who knows? I believe that over time that it's probably going to do a lot of marketing.
So even like creative stuff, and by creative I mean traditionally what we understand to be creative artwork.
Why not?
Imagery?
Why not?
I suppose possible. What do you think?
I feel absolutely not. I'm strong that I agree with Dave that AI is going to help us with the mundane, but I'm such a feeling of the brand is about emotion. And that as much as you can automate and build algorithms for everything, you'll never capture that emotion. And ultimately that will have to have a human element. But what I feel what AI will allow us to do is automate some of that mundane, maybe even pick imagery for a creative element that will allow then the marketers, the human aspect, to focus on more strategic ways to create that emotional connection of how you cannot live without this brand. And I think that's where it's going.
Well, I think it'll already pick imagery. Already you can have it pick
sure.
imagery, but it's not going to create the imagery,
It's not going to create the image.
right?
And ultimately you need a human set of eyes to say, like, that strikes an emotion with me. And I know there's a lot of potential there, but I at some point you got to go with, like, this is what I feel. And that's a human element that sets us apart from robots and machines.
I think that it depends on how you define marketing. A lot of the way we define marketing, I think it is not inconceivable at all that AI will take over that role. I'm always suspicious of two things. One is people who are involved in a job, in an activity, particularly senior people, who are always predicting that technology will never replace them. It can never do what I do. Happens all the time.
That's right.
The other one that I'm suspicious about is the prediction that as soon as the technology takes hold, something will go away completely.
Right.
That never happens either. What tends to happen is that once you introduce a technology or a new method, everything readjusts. And the thing that it's particularly good for, it takes over and then frees up other activities that become the domain of, in this case, marketers. There's also a presumption when you talk about things like creative, that computers and robots and AI will never be creative. It assumes that the outlet for creativity won't change. A robot will never create in fact, I think this was in the article, a compelling campaign with visuals and advertising. Well, that assumes that that type of advertising is going to be the dominant way people market in the future.
Right.
That presumption may be totally wrong. And the way we build emotion these days tends to be people to people, one-on-one, personalization, all of that, rather than pure brand marketing. So I think it'll have a giant impact on the work that marketers do.
Yeah, maybe it's the type of, if it's pure content marketing, and because I think what we were talking about is about more the creative side possibly, but there's a lot of marketing that's a lot less, there's a lot less of the creative that's used today. There's a lot of that creating value through, especially B2B marketing, is through good content. And there's already AI that can create content for you, right? So there's a company called Automated Insights, and they have a product that takes structured data, so data in columns and rows, and they can turn that into prose, right? So the AP is using it for, Associated Press is using it for the quarterly report on companies, publicly traded companies, and they went from generating like 330 reports a quarter to like 4,500, because now the editors, this is what you're talking about, now the editors are just reviewing them, they're not having to write them. And the journalists aren't having to write them. And it was basically the bane of the existence of journalists that had to write about business was the quarterly reports, because they were kind of straightforward. It was structured, formulaic, and so that's like taken over that whole thing. It's freed their time up, and so initially it frees people's time up to focus on something higher, more strategic, more important. But over time, we just say it just doesn't keep going up. That's my feel on it.
I feel the game will keep evolving, though, from a marketing standpoint. Whether then
Marketing could
as
totally
that keeps
change.
rising, then whether it's the objectives or how marketers are measured, will then slightly pivot as well. And that's where I think that human element will always be at the tip of that spear, if you will, kind of leading it and finding ways to leverage technology to then focus on those things that matter, whether it's that emotional side or what do we need to do to be one step ahead of that.
So Tom, just so I understand your point, when what you're saying, I mean, right now the way you get people to emotionally bond with a brand is through, in some ways, on the creative side of things. It's imagery, it's prose, and so forth. And you're saying maybe sometime in the future, that imagery and prose is not what's going to make people.
Well, it may change.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that imagery and prose is going to go away, but I think that what it will look like and the role it will play in an overall marketing strategy is likely to change. I think the last 50 years would suggest that kind of change takes place.
Yeah, no one would have
And I
predicted
don't know
social
why it
media,
wouldn't continue.
right? Back in the 50s and Mad Men era, they wouldn't have, social media wasn't even close to being around, and how much that's changed marketing, right?
Yeah, but
So-
but it hasn't changed the creative side of marketing. Is what I'm saying. I guess I'm trying to think that it's still around imagery. It's still around beautiful prose.
B2C might be.
Well, I still think.
I think B2B, you're
is-
selling SaaS, you're marketing and selling a SaaS marketing platform. It's not so much about an emotional decision.
I disagree.
Really?
Because here's the thing: if it's not, then it's just a commodity.
Right.
I have to make people think not just how life is. I want the buyer to think like my life is going to be better because I'm using Impexium software, right? How can I live without this? Because they have something. Everybody has something, and they need to feel that emotional tie of like I will no longer accept the status quo and I need to move forward, or I need to serve my members in a more efficient, effective way because I need to connect with them on an emotional level. Right?
How does that apply to the marketing of something like Instagram?
The marketing of Instagram.
Yeah,
Instagram as a marketing vehicle or the marketing of Instagram?
the marketing of Instagram.
Oh, I think people get an emotional charge out of using Instagram.
Absolutely.
Right. So I don't know that is that's sort of proves.
But it wasn't a traditional
No.
kind of imagery,
But-
emotional campaign. It was about the way people felt about using that particular application. That was the marketing.
Yeah, I think, but it's always driving to the emotion of it. It's the emotion of using Instagram,
No question.
and I don't see that's being marketed in the traditional way. Outside, I mean, I'm sure there's AI going on.
Well, I mean, there
behind
weren't
it.
print ads, there weren't TV ads, there weren't
Traditional
online
vehicle.
videos
Yeah, but
saying you ought to use Instagram.
There are online videos saying you ought to use
That
Instagram.
isn't how they launched, as I.
Well, I'm sure that they
Anyway,
were, I'm sure that they were using
the
imagery.
point
to do
is that the role changes.
Yeah.
It's a little different than selling
Yeah.
enterprise software. Although, think how much that's changed.
But I mean, a case in point, Dave, if you look back at 10 years ago, how we were marketing an AMS or a CRM platform, very brochure driven, print ad, very
Feature functions.
It was a data sheet, right, in 10
Right.
different ways.
Yep.
And now, I start with video first. I want my customers to speak. I want them to share. Here's what's working. Here's why we did it. Because I think as a viewer, they can relate to that. Someone's going to relate to that and say, I want that, or I need to be like that, or that's exactly what's challenging us. Because it connects to them on a multi-dimensional level versus just reading it.
You're a good
on the
man,
page.
Patrick Dorsey. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, but my feeling just on that is that when they're making that decision, that because it's a B2B, expensive, big decision, there might be emotion at some point they do. But when it comes down to it, it's IT directors and maybe even the executive director and maybe even the board.
I think you have to
Kind of
cover all
depends
those
on-
bases
yeah.
too, right?
Yeah.
It has to have all the features, right? You can't get away from, if you will, the check boxes. But at the end of the day, if it becomes just a checkbox war,
Yeah.
right, then I'm leaving it up to chance.
Right.
Because I approach the B2B in the same way that I'm as a consumer myself, if I'm buying whether it's a car for the family or I'm just buying a new pair of sneakers, I can't ignore the fact that to a certain extent there's an emotional buy of why I'm buying a pair of New Balance sneakers versus something else, right? Versus this car versus that car.
I think we all agree that the emotional component to marketing, if anything, is going to increase. The question is, what will we be doing differently as we execute on that? And I think that's likely to change. I mean, history says that will change.
Okay.
Were we talking about AI?
Yeah. Yeah.
Became very
Well,
emotional.
but Tom,
It is
Tom's
an emotional
It was
topic.
an emotional topic.
Tom's really hit on the crux of that matter is whether or not machines can do the sort of thing that we're talking about.
I'm confident machines are going to be able to do
I mean,
it.
off the record.
Maybe not right away. It's going to take time.
I'm just participating in this
Why
so
not?
I could put it on my resume in case my job does get eliminated.
Well, that's what
I like-
that's what beer's for.
Yeah.
If you're out of business, then you
Machines
can
don't drink. So yeah, but maybe machines get a little goofy. Program a little.
They won't be able to do this
They're
show.
not-
One of the things AI
They
does,
wouldn't want to.
one of the things AI does is give us tools to do things we never could do before.
Yeah.
I mean, we can micro segment. We can know much more about our audience. We can know much more about the habits they have, how they use technology, or in your case, the software, how the organizations run. All that information that we could never have before. That opens up all kinds of opportunities. And to Dave's original point, there's a lot of strategy then that has to be formed around that. And that's not likely to be automated, at least not in the sense we're talking about. The other thing is that you can now micro market in ways that you never could before. And that takes an awful lot of work behind the scenes in order to create the protocols and strategy that the automation then uses to do the marketing. So it's not that there aren't going to be any marketing jobs. I just think the marketing jobs are going to change pretty dramatically.
Sure. And I think that there are a lot of marketers out there who don't market nearly as well as even the machines that are doing things today. Like
There's a lot of shitty
AI,
marketing.
There is a lot of. That's our first curse word on the show. I was waiting for that. That's good. You win a prize. Yeah, Vinny. That's good. That's good. You redeemed yourself after the weird, creepy suggestion at the beginning of the show. Now you're back in, right? Okay. So let's get to our second beer. Are we ready to finish these beers off and maybe start our second beer? That was good. I like that a lot. Devils
Now
Backbone.
from Maryland.
Yeah, now from Maryland. Mal, you want to bring up our next round of beers?
I think DC feels left out, that there's no DC beer.
Yeah, I'm
Dave,
pissed,
Dave,
man.
how do you feel about that?
Does DC have beer?
Yeah, DC Brown. They got a couple of other ones as well. They got a bunch of them
Stanley
actually.
Cup beer? There must be a Stanley Cup beer.
There's gonna be.
There's gonna be.
Tell you that much.
When I was in Russia, I asked about beer, and they just looked at me and said, "Beer?
Yeah.
We don't make beer.
Piva?
We have some German beer."
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's some good breweries.
This is hard. I didn't even.
Come on, muscles.
She's like,
It's not. Okay, well, go ahead. You
That
can
looks
keep
very
going.
much like the other one.
And that is for you.
There we go.
Thank
Enjoy,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
what are we drinking?
So, what do we got here? This is Jailbreak Brewery, Maryland's Jailbreak Brewery. I give you, gentlemen, Feed the Monkey. This is another Hefeweizen, and this one is brewed with a different fruit. Can you tell me what the fruit is?
Banana.
Wrong.
Well, it's got oranges on the label.
It's cheating, Tom.
Genius. It's marketing.
Yeah, it's marketing. No machine would have thought of that. So, Dave, let's catch up a little bit. What's going on? You've got big news to report, right? Let's take a sip. Cheers. I like the way that pours.
You certainly can taste the
Smells
fruit.
Yeah, pucker right up.
That's not a beer I would drink again.
Really? I like this one.
Too bitter.
So far, I'm
Well,
on
see,
thirsty.
I like really bitter beers. I think that's very good. I think it's sweeter than the last one. So anyway, while you're not drinking your beer, sorry, I didn't know that. Tell us what's going on. Big news for you.
Oh yeah, I got a new job at the American College of Radiology in the marketing team there, director of marketing role. And based on some of the kind of craziness and topsy-turvy of the technology side of the association space, I had a couple different jobs, and it was a little messy for the past year. And so it's nice to have landed at a stable organization, big organization, and now a Community Brands client, which is interesting. So because I had worked for Community Brands at one point, and so it's an adjustment, right? Because I'd worked for an association, I then worked for a couple for-profit suppliers to associations, and now I'm back at an association again. So that's exciting.
But for the time being, you're working with my old company, Personify, right?
Right, the CRM is Personify.
So what are you doing for marketing automation these days?
I don't know. I gotta figure that out. I gotta figure that out. That's my first job.
Stuffing letters into envelopes and licking them?
Some print mail. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Patrick, what's going on?
Technology and everything.
I heard Community Brands was going to buy ACR.
Not at associations.
I wish they'd buy me. I'd sell cheap.
They're just walking down the street buying everybody.
Yeah.
Life is good at Impexium. We've been finishing up, I guess 2 days left in the first half of the year, in the second quarter. So, we've been very busy, focused on, just hitting milestones from a growth standpoint, and very exciting. The company's doing real well, growing in many sense, and from a marketing and sales perspective, busy. We're trying to leverage. It's an ongoing, race, I think, to make sure, but balancing that with prioritizing what technologies you should be using. Right? I know that it's like a kid in a candy store. There's like 10 things I want to do, but I'd rather do 1 or 2 things really well, and how to focus myself and the team to be like, let's work on these things, knowing that we should probably be doing 10 things is a daily struggle or challenge, but equally what gets me up in the morning and excited to kind of get there and fight the good fight.
Doing a little video coming up, huh?
We're doing some videos. We're very excited. So, if you just tuned in, you missed my rant about being emotional and getting customer testimonials, which I'm a big fan of. And we have a number of new initiatives that are launching for the second half of the year that are very customer focused. And one of them will be video and thought leadership testimonials that we're really excited to, sit in front of a number of our customers and just share, their experience with the software in the market, some of the things they've been able to do that they weren't previously able to do from a strategic standpoint, being able to leverage new technology. And I'm just, I'd much rather do that than a data sheet any day of the week. So, kudos to my senior management for making that commitment, and we're excited to hopefully be the first of many.
Good stuff. Tom, what's going on?
Well, as you know, I've cut back on my work. So last week I was actually camping up in Pennsylvania.
I
Sitting
thought you
in
were
a
going to
tent
say I've cut back on my beer.
outside,
That didn't happen.
outside of cell phone range, no internet, It was rather wonderful. On the work side, I focus primarily now on my industry study, the Lehman reports. And one of the things that's really interesting is that as the consolidation investor world in the association side heats up, I get calls. I've had 3 calls in the last 10 days from equity firms asking about the market,
I've had
market
2.
information.
Yeah.
So it's which is fun. I enjoy that. So that side of my business seems to be doing.
You're the man when it comes to that stuff. No doubt about that.
apparently.
Yeah. Well, I've got an interesting thing going on. I've had I submitted a proposal on Wednesday, and I got another call today. People are trying to scale their production of testimonial videos. Like, these are, global countries, and they're trying global companies, and they're trying to do, shoot video all over the place. And so the first conversation opened up with like, are you willing to fly to Prague and to?
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah, but you're not going to want to pay me to do it. I mean, by
Right.
the time I go to Prague and to Sao Paulo, and I was running the numbers like, ugh. And we want to do 10 of these, but what do you guys charge? And so I started telling him what the price. He goes, I can't do that. This is a big company too. So I'm actually exploring, like outsourcing some of the actual production work, which scares the hell out of me.
Locally?
Well, no, doing locally in those
In those
locations.
countries, yeah.
So I'm going to pull together a very detailed description of what we expect to be in these videos.
So how would that work? Would you go there and then
No.
you'd have a crew?
You'd edit, right?
No, I just edit. I'm doing all the editing centrally. So what I would do is I would pull together a very, very detailed description of what I expect the footage to look like and sound like, and then it would all come up here, and I would edit it and produce a final copy, and do all the translation work and things like that. What's that?
I think that'd be hard.
It is hard. It's gonna, by the time I ran the numbers, for me, we're gonna do the production work in the United States and Canada, which is closer, and in a lot of places I can fly in and out, and if it's local I drive, but I can do what I charge for a video, assuming a one-night stay for a 2-person crew in a city around in the United States or Canada, is exactly what I'll be charging to do this thing off in another country with a rented crew. Now, what you don't see is the
Travel.
what you don't see is the risk that goes. I mean, there's huge risk.
Huge.
I have no idea what I'm going to get back, but fortunately, it's a pass through me. I mean, I'll do my level best to get the quality, but I mean, we could have a situation where, my client gets a call from their client who's doing the testimonial and says these knuckleheads showed up and they weren't ready and they broke a bunch of stuff. I don't know. So,
Yeah.
But in 2 days, I've had people ask me to do that.
I think what's interesting about that is that, like, anytime I've worked with creatives on the creative side, or if you're outsourcing someone else doing it for you, the more explicit instruction that you can give them, the more likely it is that you get back what you're looking for. Right. And that's exactly what you're hitting on, is that you're going to be
Correct.
super detailed, and that's the way that you can best control it, is by giving as much specific. This is what I'm looking for. Maybe here are the storyboards or whatever it is you're going to do, and like, I want this, and this. I think that's the best approach to take, and there is going to be a little risk involved.
Yeah.
But
Can they stream you in so you're there?
I don't think they can do that. And plus, it would be in Portuguese in Sao Paulo. I would have no idea what the person is saying. So, I mean, and plus, you shoot all your B-roll asynchronously. So I'd have to wait to see what all comes back. And then we do our best to get them to cobble together a video. But I'm just really worried. I've never done it. I'm just really worried about something going horribly wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, there's services out there where you can
because in
go,
the end, you're on the hook, right? Like, it's you're delivering that
I have
video
to deliver
to the
the video.
client. It's your
Correct.
relationship with the client,
Correct.
not whatever his name is.
I
in
probably
Sao Paulo.
I get one mistake on that, and then I'm done.
You're the contractor.
Yeah, I'm the contractor.
Right.
So we'll see how it goes. There's some services here in the U.S. where, like, for $500, I'll go and shoot a day of video, but you don't know who you're going to get. I don't want to mess with that. So, $1,500 looked like for doing this stuff internationally. So, just for the shooting.
It's worth a try,
I think
right?
so, too.
Like, because it could open up a whole new. I mean, it opens up the whole world to you in a sense.
Yep. Part of my problem is I'm gonna be what Tom is doing. Tom have no place of fixed abode, right? So I want to get into an Airstream trailer and just go. But I physically have to be there with a camera at some point to do this work. So once I'm free of that, I'm checking out. So anyway, so let's talk about our next trend. Tom, do you want to introduce what this topic is?
Yeah, there was this interesting article about transforming into a modern marketing department. And really what the article is talking about is the increased complexity of marketing and all the different moving parts. And when it's all said and done, what this article is talking about, it seems to me, is what do you choose to bring and retain in-house versus what do you outsource? In our last conversation a few weeks ago, the article was really talking about companies bringing things from that they had been contracting for, bringing it in-house. At least there were some trends in that direction. If you read this article, it almost is the opposite. It's talking about moving some things out of the office and contracting with outside sources. The types of things that they're talking about keeping in-house, I think we'd all agree on: marketing strategy, product marketing, customer experience, which is a pretty broad term. The sorts of things they're talking about outsourcing, or at least doing in conjunction, things like advertising, programmatic, research, creative design. What do you think about that?
I would agree. In the sense of some of the things that you referenced from an Impexium standpoint, where it becomes we certainly have to look at what staff and what resources and in-house expertise that we have. And given the priorities that we have, it might not make sense to have a full-time creative or graphic designer on staff. So that might be something for more of a project standpoint that we can outsource. Similar with research. These are valuable components that impact other aspects of marketing, but maybe we don't have enough work, or we aren't able to prioritize enough work to justify that headcount full-time. So for us, it's a logical, almost by a project basis, where something like strategic or even a product marketing, where we're interacting with clients and we have that brand element. How are we interacting with prospects and clients and other partners, from building out the product and value props and differentiators.
What about content development?
Content, we probably have a hybrid strategy, because as much as I'd want it all in-house, I don't have that luxury right now. But I also know that there's subject matter experts, and we all have probably enough friends, if you will, friends and family, that are great content creators. And so I, to Paul's point, I trust them. I don't necessarily feel exposed if I reach out to some of these resources to say, here's what I'm thinking. How would you approach that? Can you help me out? And if it works, I think that's great. Would I want them internally? I'd love to just walk down the hall and be like, hey, let's brainstorm. But I don't know, in today's day and age where you have to be agile, that sometimes you just need to bring someone off your bench.
Yeah, my whole business runs on this need to outsource, because what I do is a little bit specialized. And so we have a lot of clients who have tried doing video marketing, and they're like, to do like that level is like really hard, and I need to get the right equipment, and it's expensive and things like that. You can do tons of great video, and I'm a big proponent of people doing video on their iPhones and things like that. You can do so much. Josh Paul, our friend, recently tweeted or put out on LinkedIn. He said, you got to stop thinking about producing video. You got to start thinking about publishing video. And he's right. You just don't worry. Get your thoughts on video and get them out there, which is great. But once you step up to another level, you probably don't want to do a product video that way. You need a specialist to do it. And it's probably, for most companies, small, medium-sized business, hiring a video guy or two and setting up a studio is probably not worth it.
Or even the equipment.
Even the equipment,
The
right.
equipment.
Actually, the equipment's kind of the easiest part of it. Yeah, well, it's expensive, but learning how to use it. And now I find myself in the position of outsourcing some of my stuff. These local production crews, if we start going global for some of these customers.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a really hard question, and it's like so complicated, and it depends so much on how big is your organization, how big is your marketing team, and how much money do you have? Because when you outsource, you lose control a little bit, but sometimes it depends on how often are you outsourcing something. If people aren't doing a lot of video, but they do it once in a while, it's hard to have a competence in-house because you're not doing it enough to really get good at editing video. Because like video in particular is one that still stumps me quite a bit. Like I don't even, it's so hard to do and do well. I just feel, and I'm not talking about Josh Paul, and I can see it's in his house, in his background, in his bedroom kind of thing. Like that's different. There's a different style to that. It depends what you're probably producing. But so some of it's like how often do you do some of the activities? So, and that's the hard part. When I went into Aptify, when I started Aptify in late 2015 as the CMO there, I had a relatively small team of about 4 or 5 people. That didn't change over time, but the team and their abilities and skill sets weren't really where they needed to be. So I outsourced the strategy, I was involved in it, strategy execution to an inbound marketing agency. They're called Impact Branding and Design. They were the HubSpot agency of the year last year, exceptional. And they helped my team come up to speed, right? And understand better digital marketing. And we were paying their own retainer. It was like $10,000 a month or something like that. And they helped us in areas that we didn't have expertise in. And then over time, some of the staff rotated out, and we brought in more, better staff. And by the end of the time that we worked with them, we didn't need them as much. They were still very complementary to what we were doing, but from the time when they started to the end, the whole team had transformed too. So they sort of took our marketing, got on steroids while the rest of the team was coming up to speed, right? So so some of it's like you can outsource even strategy. They were doing buyer personas for us, right? Taught me how to do buyer personas. And that's invaluable. It was almost like you're teaching people even though you're probably going to put yourself out of business in a sense. But that was the approach they took and why they've been so successful. So it depends a lot on the size of the organization, how much do you outsource stuff, and what you want to outsource.
One of the things I heard from all three of you is that a little bit different towards the end, Dave, but a common theme in there was organization size. That perhaps you have to outsource, or you choose to outsource because you're small, can't afford to have that expertise and so forth. Is that really the determinant? I mean, from my perspective, it's a question that hinges more around what do you want to invest in for your internal capacity, and what are you better to tap into other expertise, even if you could afford to have that in-house. Is it really a matter of size? If you were 4 times as big, you'd have the video department?
I think it depends a lot on size, because if you're a 2-person shop or a 3-person shop, you're never going to be SEO experts and conversion rate optimization experts, right? And then you have no choice. You got to get some help from the outside.
But what if you've got 25
spread across? Well, you better be. If you're a 25-person shop and you don't have experts in video, in podcasting, in SEO, website design, right? Like the whole gamut, then you got a problem, I think. And there should be specialties within the organization, and you should have staff that are specialists
Well, but wait a minute.
in specific areas.
What about the whole notion of being agile and being able to turn on a dime and not have resources that are there that are maybe not mission critical? I mean, and when you look at your marketing mix, some things are going to be under fringe, some things are going to be most important. I think there's an argument to be made that, look, we're not going to get into the whole video thing. Well, maybe hire a guy who knows video, or a gal who really knows how to outsource and get it, but not, set up all the studios and the cameras. I mean, you can go too deep into some of these things, I think.
That's the question.
And then you're kind of stuck.
That's the balance.
Yeah, you got
there's somewhere
it's a balance,
there. But I think
right?
a bigger team of like 20 people, I think you can afford to have one of them dedicated to like video and maybe some other things that are similar to video. Right?
A 25-person marketing, you would have to.
You better have specialists.
Yeah.
But,
Or maybe
but if you're
maybe
three,
the apples to apples question is, if you could afford a 20 or 25 person staff, you have enough of a marketing budget, would you choose to hire people, or would you use it to outsource? Maybe that's the question.
that's a great.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure which way.
I think there'd be core things that you know that you're going to do, and that you just, for me, it'd be personal. I'd want to know that I had, a teammate that, in as much as we outsource people, and I consider them part of the team, very much so. I think there is something to be said of like, they're on your team, they're right there,
Yeah.
they're in the same hallway.
They're in the trenches with
and,
you.
they're not necessarily a designated hitter. They just do this one thing, but I want them also to look at all the other things that we're doing and see how they can leverage their expertise to raise all the levels of effort and output from all these other programs. And sometimes you just need those heads right there. So it's a balance, I agree, but I think there's certain key roles when you got to build like that core. You want to have that strength that that you can count on.
But that core changes, right? So, for example, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you'd absolutely want your blog writer there. But now maybe you're not doing a blog. Maybe
I've
that's
worked with some
shifted
great
to,
writers
Right.
that like you give them the same kind of concept with your video. You give them a blog, abstract. Here's what I'm looking for. Here are the keywords. Here's the topic.
Yep.
The more you give them, the better you get back.
I think
Right.
success
So
with
like
that
you can
too,
have.
yeah.
There are great writers that can. Yeah. It probably depends a bit.
That point about agile, I think, is important too.
Yeah, so
Because the market does change,
yeah.
and investments in people and internal capacity, it has a staying power. It lasts, whether that's what you would choose to invest in today or not.
Yeah.
And
I don't know.
I like to outsource like the creative or the writing, because I always know I can have a fresh voice, right? And I can bring in people where I want someone maybe doing the strategy to the blog to help with the personas, or someone that's more analytics focused. I want those people right next to me, right? But I want that flexibility as our business changes or grows in our addressable market, that I can bring in someone that maybe has that voice. I can say, hey, Deirdre, you work on these things, right?
I was just going to say Deirdre Reed. She's a great writer.
Right, but then there might be certain, as our market's growing and maybe it's getting into the exhibit business, right? I'm going to find someone that specializes in events and exhibits and that experience from an event standpoint. And that's where I don't want to be a one-trick pony, have someone on my staff. I want to be like, let's go find the best writer there.
right.
And it depends on how many events you're doing. So my last job, I had an event person, a couple of event people. We did so many events. And so trying to outsource, keep all that straight, juggling all that stuff didn't make sense. So, but I mean, the whole agility thing is a big deal. Things are changing, in my business, video is changing like crazy.
Yep.
And I'm, under major pressure to make sure that I'm staying up on
It's
it.
probably hard enough for you to make investments in a given technology,
Right.
knowing it's going to change, much less
Right.
people who are experts in that technology.
Yeah, exactly right. So-
It's funny if I had to hire someone right now, if I was starting a team right now, the first person I would hire is almost like a database person. Where 10 years ago you're thinking I gotta hire creatives or I gotta hire
Data scientists.
someone with my website, but I want someone that's gonna understand, who's gonna actually get into the data from a marketing automation, all the different touch points we're getting in there, and better understand what's working and what's not, right? So that's gonna then drive the strategic from a creative standpoint, and this is where like marketing, I can look at the numbers and now I have accountability, right? And I welcome that accountability, because I can say, here's what's working, here's why it's working, and here's where we should invest more in or pull back, right? Because you got an executive team's like, we should be at every annual conference, we should be at annual membership and marketing. I'm like, we shouldn't be in the 20 by 20 booth at everything, right? Because it just doesn't pay for itself. I mean, there's other things beyond leads that there's benefits of going to these shows, but you can have someone that better understands that data as our roles change.
But it augurs again for that agile stance,
Yes.
right? Because it's a lot easier to let a contract run out than to have to fire somebody who's on staff to hire somebody else. Okay.
Yeah, for me, it was the best decision I made at Optify was hiring the outside agency. It was, of all the decisions that I made over the 2 years I was there, that was the best one. At that time, in that specific situation where the team wasn't
Based on your needs.
maybe based on the needs, exactly.
It seems like there's sort of two levels. There's the super high level strategy at that level. I mean, really understanding the nuances of a marketing strategy or a product strategy or whatever it might be. And then there's the operational side. And those two seem to be the easiest ones to see outsourcing to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a certain expertise that you couldn't possibly have. And then the other is operations.
Interesting. Okay, let's move on to our case study, all right? So each month we ask our viewers to submit a particular marketing challenge or problem that they're struggling with. And this month's challenge comes from Jason Furch. Is that right, Frank? Got it.
What's up, Jason?
Hey, Jason. Who's the operations and marketing manager for OSI Beyond. They do B2B IT services. Jason asks, what are one or two of the most important practices for establishing authority and building a brand online, and how can I start applying those practices to my work today? Patrick.
Establishing a brand online.
Yeah.
I think before you can even think about that, you have to understand, who your brand is, who's your buyer. I'd almost get the structure, like what's the foundation of that brand? What is your differentiator? What's your value prop? What problems are you trying to solve? Build those personas that Dave mentioned in the last segment. And then from there, now you can develop the creative to figure out where are they buying, where should this media be placed from a digital standpoint, where should you be having that conversation or initiating that conversation with them. So before I even thought about the brand in itself and where it's being displayed and building it, I'm going to roll it back a little and try to better understand the who, what, where about what our brand is in that kind of fundamental structure of what problems are we trying to solve for what individual or what role, and then make sure that I'm certainly differentiating myself against the competitor. Some of that would be research as well. Where are we in the market? What's our perception? Where do people view us? Are we a startup, or are we been around 10 years and maybe we're trying to pivot? I would answer all those questions, have like an internal look in the mirror, and then I would be thinking about how to build it online based on what that research told me.
So I'm going to I'm going to come in at a lower angle and a more tactical approach. And there's that old adage that if you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. So forgive me for this, but I would make sure that when you play out your brand to the market, to the rest of the world, that you make sure that you're emphasizing visual content. I just can't imagine that, like in this day and age, that you would think like we need a lot of, and nobody actually thinks in these terms, we need lots of really good words on our website. You need fewer words, you need the images, you need the video, you need the diagrams, the graphics that convey your brand, establish that authority, and present your brand to the world. So a little bit lower than the 30,000 foot view of yours, but that's where I'm coming from.
I think, I'm assuming, I know a little bit about OSI. For this
What is
conversation,
OSI? What is it? OSI Beyond is the name?
OSI Beyond, yeah.
What do they do?
do
IT services, right?
They do IT services. The organization, one of the organizations I was involved in, they were one of the list of potential contractors to outsource some of the IT support, some of that.
Okay.
And they're well known in the association.
They're very well known.
space. Yeah.
Very well known. So one of the ways to think about brand is what you want people to say about you. So when that person who knows you meets the person that doesn't know you in the elevator and they say, who are these guys? Those 3 sentences that the person says, you should think very carefully about what it is that you want those 3 sentences to be. And in some cases, that's a very tangible kind of commodity. They do X, Y, Z. In some cases, it's less tangible. They play this kind of role. They support our executives, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think before you can talk about effectively establishing that brand online, you have to understand what the elements are. And to me, strategy is about creating conditions that bring about a result that you're hoping for. And in the case of brand strategy, it's what conditions do you have to create in the user's mind in order to come up with those 3 target sentences. It may be very emotional, in which case video and testimonial and the difference it's made in the lives of their customers might be very effective. On the other hand, if it's more about specific services and ways of saving money and tangible items like that, then you may take a somewhat different approach.
Yeah, I fundamentally disagree with that. I think everything, even if it's, tabular information, I think there's an
I'm not saying it's not emotional
angle to it.
but it's different.
It's emotional. At the end of the day, I think that's why people buy it. Sorry,
So-
again, I'm the hammer looking at the nail.
All right, Mr. Hammer.
Yeah, come on.
Hammer
Hit me-
time.
hit me with it.
Do you do that? Can you do that dance?
I cannot.
No, okay,
Yeah.
good. We won't get you the gold pants either.
How do you market nails?
By making people feel really good that the things that they've hammered those
With
things
a nail
into is
gun.
going to stay up.
With a nail gun, that's how you do it. There's fear.
I had an
There's
answer
your
to that.
emotion.
Yeah.
They're running from a
I don't want to feel like that nail.
No.
So what I would say to our friend at OSI Beyond is a focus on authenticity. There's too much corporate gobbledygook these days. It pisses me off. It drives me nuts. And you should focus on everything that you write, because not everything is an image or a video or a photo, but everything that you write that's geared towards your customers should be like you're having a conversation with them. So if you can take your email that you might be sending out or the copy that's going to be on your landing page, read it to your colleague. If your colleague doesn't want to punch you in the face, that's good, right? It should be about a conversation. So authenticity is about being real. There's this massive movement away from corporate gobbledygook, and it's been happening for a while, but not enough brands are doing it. So be authentic, have conversations, be simplistic. I think design needs to be about simplicity and white space and ease on the eyes when you're looking at stuff. The last thing I would say is, and that's my thing I've been on for a while now, is on conversational marketing, which is there's some companies that are going this direction, in particular Drift.com, that has AI-powered chatbots on their website. And so what they're trying to do is, instead of having landing pages with forms and you go and put in your details and download the ebook, the chatbot has a conversation with you right there. And when it's time, there are playbooks in the back end of it, so you could say, ask these questions via the chatbot. Once you've qualified who that person is, hand it over to a live salesperson. Because when people are live on your website, that's when you get them, not the next day or a week later or whatever. So there's this whole kind of movement starting around conversational marketing that's really interesting.
So I told you about that proposal that I submitted for shooting around the world, Sao Paulo and Drift. Came in through Drift.
Booyah.
Yep.
I would think in this particular business, testimonials would be a good way, would be one of the good ways to start that conversation. Because I've worked with some of these associations, you've worked in the associations, and when they're looking to outsource some of those functions, they're looking to solve a particular set of issues that affect all of the staff, affect the operation of the organization. And I would think that the way to bring emotion into that is the impact that they've had on other customers. Because, I mean, it is a universal sort of need. It's not this society and that association, that trade have different. They all have that same, they all have a similar kind of requirement. So,
Yeah, but building
what do
the
you think
brand,
about that?
building the brand could be around thought leadership too, which could take on lots of different forms. Thought leadership can be in video, like Paul's been doing a lot of recently. Thought leadership video. You did a webinar that I
Thought
attended
Leadership Marketing
recently.
Week this
Yeah,
week.
and Thought Leadership Marketing Week this week.
I know it
Looking
for a
forward to
fact.
that video tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like a little plug there.
Yeah,
But
thank you.
so thought leadership can be written. It could be audio. It could be video. Right. So that's a great way to establish a brand, is through showing that you are a thought leader in the space. And I would suggest OSI really look at that. Focus
Yeah.
on thought leadership.
We know, we all know Ben Muscolino, right?
Yeah.
He's in a, not,
Love Ben. He's a great guy.
We love Ben. He's not in the IT services bit, but he's in, like programming for people.
It's with
and,
Ben L Solutions,
Ben L
right?
Solutions, yeah. So I shot some testimonials for him, and I asked one of the people, like, how do you, do you sleep better at night knowing that they're working? And this customer told the story, like, these guys showed up like at 2 a.m. before our trade show, and they fixed this crazy problem that we were having with our registration system. And, I'd probably be fired right now if they hadn't come and done that. They mean so much to me.
Wow.
And I usually don't have my clients in the room when I interview their customers. Ben happened to be there. Ben was like
Crying,
teary-eyed.
I'm sure, yeah.
He was like, I had no idea you guys liked me so much, thought that way of us.
That's
so
great.
you can get that emotional content out of people because
That's the perfect kind of testimonial for
Yeah.
the business that these guys are in.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right.
Absolutely.
So, okay, well, what do we think? We're at sort of the end of our thing. We're end of our show. What are we thinking?
Trail Angel Weiss.
I'm going with Virginia.
Yeah,
Monkey.
Sorry,
you're going
Maryland.
with the monkey. I'm going with Trail Angel myself. I like that spicy angle. You're the outlier. You're an individual.
He is.
I'm the monkey.
You're the monkey. They were both good. I would definitely buy more of
They
each
should
of
have
those.
called
but-
it, or they can mix them, call them Trail Monkey.
Tangy. It's a little more tangy.
See, I thought the other one was more tangy.
Nah, this one had a little more
Yeah,
He's trying to get me to say something, isn't he?
you said it.
spicy. Sweet
It's
tangy.
not that hard.
It's true. Just set Dave up.
one more beer, and who knows what'll come out. Okay, so that's it for us. If you like this content, be sure to like us and to follow us and to share it with your friends and all that other stuff. Remember to drink and market responsibly. So for Tom, Patrick, Dave, and me, this is Paul Gannon signing off. Good night, everybody.
Night.
See you guys. Good job.
That was fun.
Yeah, good job.